9 became 8. Then 8 became 5. And that wasn't the only thing they had to face. Yet they kept going with something to hold on to. This is From Is 9. 22 girls stood on the idol school stage, knowing only 9 would debut. The show ran through the summer of 2017, with weekly votes deciding who stayed and who went home. By September 29, the lineup was set. 9 trainees were chosen to debut, bringing together different strengths and personalities. What connected them from the start was not just the outcome, but the shared beginning they were about to step into. From the beginning, their name carried meaning. From Is 9 held 2 ideas at once. From idol school marked where they came from, and in Korean pronunciation, it echoed the word promise. It tied their start to a responsibility, not just to debut, but to grow alongside the people who believed in them. On the 17th of November 2017, they released Glass Shoes as a pre-debut single. It introduced 9 girls stepping into the public eye before their official start, offering a first glimpse of the promise they intended to keep. Their official debut followed on the 24th of January 2018 with the mini-album reached number 4 on the Korean chart. The concept felt bright and youthful, carried by a natural energy that felt sincere. Behind the scenes, however, things were less simple. Management sat with Stone Music Entertainment, while training and creative direction came from Pledis Entertainment. With responsibilities split, uncertainty followed, decisions took longer, and direction felt unclear. Even so, the debut landed. People noticed them, and the promise, once just a word in their name, had finally begun. Just months later, the first challenge arrived. In May 2018, Gyuri left to compete on Produce 48. From Is 9 continued as 8, releasing DKDK on June 5 through their 2-day EP. For the first time, the members took part in writing lyrics together. Even without all 9 present, there was a growing sense of togetherness. The album reached number 4 on the charts once again. The numbers held steady, though the group felt incomplete. Another shift followed in September. Management moved to Off the Record Entertainment, their second change in less than a year. Along with it came Gyuri's return. She finished her time on Produce 48 without joining the final group, and From Is 9 stood together as 9 on stage again. Then the 10th of October 2018 changed everything. Love Bomb was released as part of the From 9 single album, and critics immediately called it a masterpiece. They praised the song for its balance of brightness and catchiness. The choreography felt natural. The delivery felt confident. Early responses were positive, with stable streaming and strong support from fans. The wider public, however, did not fully follow at the time. There was no sudden breakout, no major music show wins to mark the moment. Over the years, Love Bomb would grow into something bigger, recognized for what it had always been. But back then, it remained a quiet reminder of how close From Is 9 stood to wider recognition. By 2019, From Is 9 had found a steady rhythm, even as wider recognition continued to lag behind their effort.
Wanna have some fun!
Fun arrived on June 4 through the Fun Factory single album, reaching number 2 on the Korean album chart. It marked their strongest results so far. Hayoung and Jiwon co-wrote the B-side Fly High, showing their growth beyond performance alone. The music felt tighter, their stage presence sharper, and their chemistry undeniable. Even so, the results stayed familiar. No music show wins on major broadcasts. There was still no single moment that shifted them from a growing group into a firmly established one. The waiting carried into 2020. In September, Feel Good Secret Code was released as part of the My Little Society EP, bringing a different sound and concept. The pandemic had changed the industry, with digital promotion replacing live stages. And during promotions, Seoyeon stepped back due to a leg injury, and the group performed as 8 for a time. Fromis 9 adjusted, like many others, yet wider recognition remained just out of reach. Around the same period, something strange happened with Love Bomb. 2 years after its release, the song started circulating online. Fans returned to it. New listeners discovered it through recommendations, and the track suddenly had a second life. But that success felt bittersweet, a recognition for old work, while newer releases continued to face a quieter response. May 2021 brought. It stayed true to the group's bright energy and was well received by fans. Once again, the reception felt solid, but major wins did not follow. Another shift came in August 2021. Marking their third company changes in 3 years, Fromis 9 transferred fully to Pledis Entertainment. Management, training, and direction finally sat under one roof. Stability at last felt possible. September 2021 delivered the moment they'd been waiting for. Talk and Talk won on the show, giving Fromis 9 their first music show victory on a major broadcast. The members cried on stage. 1,627 days had passed since their debut. More than 4 years of waiting, working, and holding on to the promise behind their name. The tears carried relief and reassurance. They reflected the weight of time and the belief that staying together still mattered. Yet even with that first win, the numbers told a familiar story. Chart performance remained modest, and the wider public had yet to fully catch on. The promise stood halfway fulfilled. Fromis 9 had shown they could endure and succeed. The question of how far that promise could still go remained open. January 2022 opened a new chapter with DM and the Midnight Guest EP. The sound felt more mature, shaped by years of experience rather than rushing. Their growth showed clearly, and their reputation as fourth-gen summer queens began to take form. This time, the charts responded more strongly. Recognition grew at a steady pace, and momentum finally felt real. Then everything paused. Just before their June comeback, 5 members were involved in a car accident. The showcase for Stay This Way was canceled. There were no serious injuries, but recovery took time. What should have been their biggest release of the year suddenly felt less certain. Even so, they returned. Stay This Way was released on June 27 as part of the From Our Memento Box EP. The response reflected how far they had come. The album reached #1 on the charts, the first time Fromis 9 had stood at the top. Music show wins followed, more than once. The song carried the brightness they were known for, while reflecting how much they had grown. After years of steady work, the results finally aligned with the effort behind them. For the first time, the promise felt close within reach. Then the 31st of July 2022 brought difficult news. Gyuri left the group. When Fromis 9 moved to Pledis Entertainment in 2021, she remained under a separate 1-year contract from off-the-record entertainment, while the other members signed longer agreements. When that period ended, she chose not to renew, deciding to focus on acting. 9 became 8, formations changed, harmonies shifted, the group had to find balance again. The loss hit hard. Still, they continued. Another test followed in October, when Saerom and Seoyeon both took time away for health reasons. At different points, Fromis 9 performed with 6 or 7 members. The group that once promised to grow together now had to honor that promise while adapting again and again. They did not step back. Each stage, each performance, each return showed the same choice being made. Fromis 9 kept moving forward, not by ignoring setbacks, but by working through them. The promise they carried did not weaken under pressure. It held, even as the shape of the group continued to change. The 5th of June 2023 marked a milestone that had been building for more than 5 years. Unlock My World arrived as Fromis 9's first full studio album, led by the title track. The song centered on honesty and self-expression, fitting the weight of releasing a full album after years together. All 8 members took part in writing the closing track, Eye Contact, showing involvement that extended beyond the stage. Critics responded to their growth, pointing out how their sound had developed while still feeling familiar. For the first time since Gyuri's departure, all 8 members promoted together. The group felt whole again. Their chemistry came through naturally, and their confidence higher than ever. The following summer brought a turning point. The 12th of August 2024 brought and Fromis 9 reached a new level of recognition. The song climbed to number 2 on the Circle Digital chart, their highest position to date. For the first time in their career, they entered the Melon Top 10, reaching number 10 with more than 100,000 daily users. 4 music show wins followed. Billboard later named Supersonic the 8th best K-pop song of 2024, marking a moment of global attention they had not experienced before. 7 years after debut, after company changes, lineup shifts, and long stretches of waiting, they had finally broken through. Supersonic became the summer track they had always been capable of making. Their reputation as summer queens now had numbers to support it. They performed at waterbomb festivals for the first time, reaching audiences who might never have discovered them otherwise. The momentum felt steady, built on years of work rather than a single moment. Then the 29th of November 2024 arrived with news no one had expected. Pledis Entertainment announced that contracts would expire on December 31. After finally achieving the breakthrough they'd worked toward for 7 years, Fromis 9 faced a decision about their future as a group. The 23rd of December 2024 brought From as their final release under Pledis Entertainment. The song worked as both a thank you and a closing note for that chapter. More importantly, it marked the point where a difficult decision could no longer be avoided. Saerom, Jisun, and Seoyeon chose not to continue. 8 became 5. For the first time, the group that had endured so much faced the real possibility of ending. After 7 years together, and their biggest success behind them, stepping away would have made sense. No one would have blamed them for calling it a success and moving on. Instead, 5 members chose to continue. On the 26th of January 2025, Hayoung, jiwon, Chaeyoung, nagyung, and jiheon announced they had signed with ASND, a small startup agency with no big history. There were no guarantees waiting there. Each of them had other options, safer ones, paths that would have required less risk, but they chose to stay together. The challenge ahead was clear. A new agency meant rebuilding from the ground up, from staff to promotion to distribution. The industry offered plenty of examples where restarts like this did not last. Then the 26th of March 2025 brought an answer. ASND acquired the Fromis 9 trademark, placing ownership of the name in the hands of the members themselves. The promise that began in 2017 now belonged to those who had chosen to carry it forward. In the 25th of June 2025, brought their first comeback as the new Fromis 9. From Our 20s was released with the title track. Their first release is 5. The song held on to the brightness fans recognized, while reflecting the changes behind it. On July 4, they won on Music Bank. It was proof they could still stand on the same stages, still compete, still be recognized after everything had changed. That comeback meant more than numbers. It showed that their promise was not tied to comfort or certainty, it was tied to choice. July brought even bigger news: their first world tour, Now Tomorrow. Their Seoul shows on August 9 and 10 sold out. US dates were revealed on July 1, followed by the Asian leg on July 23. 8 years after debut, Fromis 9 had grown from a survival show group into artists meeting fans around the world. On the 2nd of December 2025, they released White Memories, a remake of Kim Min-jong's classic song. The winter release felt right, a quiet gift for fans who had stayed with them through every change. 8 years in, 5 members strong, Fromis 9 were still making music, still standing together, still keeping the promise. Most groups make promises they struggle to keep. Fromis 9 made theirs in public, chosen through votes, tied to a name that literally means promise, and asked to grow under the eyes of everyone watching. It took 1,627 days to reach their first major music show win. They moved through multiple companies, lost members along the way, and reached their biggest success just as their future came into question. At every point, there was a reasonable way out. Each setback offered a moment where stopping would have made sense. Still, they continued. Not because the path was easy, but because the promise mattered more than the easier path. 5 members chose to rebuild from the ground up with an unknown agency, not out of pressure, but out of belief. 8 years later, through changes, losses, and quiet persistence, Fromis 9 showed what that promise truly meant. Not perfection, not speed, just the choice to keep going together. Fromis 9 dared to be bold. Will you?